You know, when a disaster hits, a flood, an earthquake, a hurricane, the very first thing on the scene is just chaos, right? Information is almost non-existent, the needs are just overwhelming, and every single second is critical. But what's really fascinating is that behind the scenes, there's this kind of hidden technological hero that brings order to all that chaos. It's something that turns a mountain of confusing data into a clear path forward. So let's dive right in and see how it works.
All right, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll talk about that initial fog of disaster, the total confusion on the ground. Then we'll get into the technology that helps clear things up. It's called GIS. We'll look at how it actually maps out solutions, helps organize the chaos, and the real measurable impact it has. And finally, we'll take a peek at what's next.
Okay, so let's start with the problem itself. Picture this. A crisis has just hit. First responders on the ground are basically flying blind. They're asking themselves, where is the damage the worst? Which roads are totally blocked? Who needs our help, like, right now? Answering these questions, well, that's the first and, honestly, the most critical challenge of all.
And this map right here, this is the very first step out of that fog. What you're looking at is a damage assessment map from Typhoon Haiyan. See, before you can even send teams out, you need this kind of bird's eye view. Is the building just damaged or is it completely collapsed? This isn't just a pretty picture. It's the start of a real strategy. It helps those already stretched-thin assessment teams figure out where they absolutely have to go first.
And this quote, man, it really gets to the heart of it. If you look back at past disasters, the biggest failures, they weren't usually about a lack of stuff or people. Nope, the real problem was a total breakdown in coordination. You had different agencies not talking to each other, no clear person in charge, no systematic plan, just chaos. And that's the exact problem that modern digital mapping is built to solve.
So, we've got the problem down, chaos. Now let's talk about the solution that cuts right through it. It's called Geographic Information Systems, or just GIS.
Okay, so what is GIS? Well, the easiest way to think about it is like Google Maps but on steroids, specifically for first responders. It's not just a flat, static picture of a place. It's a dynamic system that pulls in, stores, and analyzes layers upon layers of data. It takes boring spreadsheets and dense reports and turns them into this living, breathing, intelligent map that actually helps you make critical, life-saving decisions on the fly.
So how does this actually work out in the real world? Because this isn't just some cool tech for the sake of tech. It's a super practical toolkit that solves very specific, often life-or-death problems that responders face every single day.
All right, check this out. One of the single biggest problems is that so many of the world's most vulnerable communities are, well, they're literally off the map. I mean, no detailed street grids, no building layouts, nothing. How are you supposed to plan an aid delivery or a rescue operation? It's impossible. The solution is something called base mapping, and a lot of the time this is actually done by an army of digital volunteers around the world who meticulously trace satellite images to, for the very first time, put these places on the map.
And the difference? I mean, wow, it's just dramatic. Look at this comparison. On the left, you've got Gulu, Uganda, before any base mapping. It's just a couple of major roads, right? But then look at the right. That's after volunteers went to work. Suddenly, you have a detailed city grid. An entire community just becomes visible. Now responders can see individual houses, they can plan actual routes, they can finally understand the true scale of the place they're trying to help.
Okay, next problem. I like to call it data chaos. Think about it. You've got health information in one PDF report. The locations of your volunteers are in some random spreadsheet. And the data on roads and bridges? That's buried in a totally different system. It's a mess. GIS is like the great integrator. It lets you stack all these different bits of information, like transparent layers, on top of one single map, so you can finally see the whole picture at once.
This map from the cholera outbreak in Sierra Leone is a perfect case study. It's pretty straightforward. The red splotches show where there are a lot of cholera cases. The blue circles, that's the number of trained Red Cross volunteers nearby. By layering just these two things, you can see instantly where you have people in the right place and, way more importantly, where the huge gaps are. This allows you to make smart, strategic decisions about moving people and supplies to where they'll do the most good.
But listen, having amazing maps isn't a magic bullet. The tech is only as good as the human system that's actually using it. And that's where a standardized command structure becomes absolutely essential.
And that system has a name. It's called the Incident Command System, or ICS. The best way to think of it is as a universal playbook for disaster response. It's a standardized structure that pretty much everyone uses, from your local fire department all the way up to huge international aid groups. With ICS, everyone knows who the incident commander is. Everyone knows who's in charge of operations, of planning, of logistics. It creates a crystal clear chain of command and makes sure everyone is speaking the same language.
which, as we've already seen, is absolutely critical.
And this right here, this is basically what ICS looks like on a map. It's called a who, what, where map. This one's from the Typhoon Haiyan response. You can see exactly which aid group is working in which province and exactly what they're doing. Shelter, food, healthcare, you name it. A map like this is what stops 5 different organizations from all showing up in the same village, while another village 10 miles away gets nothing. It's literally the digital backbone for massive coordinated efforts.
Okay, so we've seen how it works in theory, but what's the actual real-world impact? Let's get into some numbers, because they really show how much of a difference these smart maps can make.
First off, let's talk about speed, because in a crisis, every single minute counts. Get this. Studies show that when cities use data-driven mapping, they can cut their response times by as much as 30%. 30%! That means help gets there sooner. Rescues happen faster. It means more lives are saved. Plain and simple. It's a huge advantage when the clock is your biggest enemy.
Next up, efficiency. It's not just about being fast, you have to be smart too. Analysis from FEMA found that using this kind of mapping software can make relief distribution 40% more effective. Think about what that means. Less wasted time, less wasted supplies, and more of the right aid, clean water, food, medicine, getting to the people who are desperate for it.
And third, and this is maybe the coolest part, this tech is about getting ahead of the disaster. Take Hurricane Harvey. Using GIS, experts built predictive flood models that showed which areas were at the highest risk before the water even started to rise. And because of that, authorities were able to proactively evacuate more than 30,000 people. I mean, think about that. That's 30,000 people moved to safety, not because of what was happening, but because of what the data predicted was about to happen. It's a game changer.
Because at the end of the day, behind all these big numbers and complex maps, there are people. This map here shows a recovery project in Haiti. Every little house icon you see, that's a family with a rebuilt home. Every tap icon is a new clean water station. And it even goes deeper. You can see individual stories, like the story of France, a guy who lost his home but is now helping rebuild his entire community. This is what it's all about, using all this amazing technology to put lives and communities back together.
So, from clearing that initial fog of war to building a coordinated, data-driven response, GIS has clearly become just an indispensable tool. But technology never stands still. It's always evolving. So, what does the future of disaster response even look like? So, let's just quickly recap the big takeaways here. GIS gives responders a real-time picture of what's happening. It helps them put resources where they're needed most. It makes communication and coordination way, way better. But what it really does is transform a huge mess of raw data into clear, actionable, life-saving decisions.
And that kind of brings us to our final thought. We've seen how powerful it is just to layer different kinds of data on a map, but just imagine, what happens when we start adding artificial intelligence to the mix? Or machine learning that can spot patterns we can't? What about real-time data streaming in from drones or even social media posts? As all this technology gets even more powerful, what new doors are going to open for saving lives? I mean, really, what is the next frontier for disaster response?